Hey, welcome to Hooper's Radar. Today we are going to be grading every Western Conference NBA team's offseason. Let's get straight into it. Alright, so we have all 15 Western Conference teams right here. And starting with the Dallas Mavericks, I think they had a pretty good offseason. They addressed some of the defensive issues. They drafted Derek Lively, acquired Grant Williams to get at that power forward spot. And then they also got Max Prosper in the draft. They just got some defensive guys to address their issues on the defensive end last year, which is where they lacked the most. And because of that, I feel like some teams did have way better free agencies and off seasons, but the Dallas Mavericks had very good one, and I'm going to put them in B. Next, we got the Denver Nuggets. They had a very solid offseason. Not much to do when you won a championship. You pretty much can't get much better than that, especially because they already have what they need. They basically did what they had to. They kept their starting lineup, kept the guys they needed to keep, and they have those guys on contract. They did lose Bruce Brown. That's the only thing they've lost, though. So because the Nuggets had a solid offseason and kept most of their guys, I'm going to give them the B tier as well. Yeah, you didn't go out and get much, but you did pretty solid in the draft. They drafted the guy from Gonzaga that I like a lot. Forgot his name at the moment. But yeah, they got Julian Strawther. That's the guy from Gonzaga. Like that pickup. Lost Bruce Brown, but they're still a very good team. They kept their whole starting lineup. Still got Christian Braun. The Nuggets had a solid offseason. Next, we got the Warriors. And you guys already know what I'm going to do with the Warriors, man. They didn't address anything this offseason. All they did was trade Jordan Poole, who they gave up to. I think they gave up on Jordan Poole way too quickly. This guy, yes, he had a down season. Yes, he had a down playoffs, but he did show promise, and he's still so young. He's the roof, the potential is still incredible for Jordan Poole. Like, he still has so much time to improve, and I think they gave up on him a little bit too early, just like they gave up on James Wiseman too early, except I think Jordan Poole ended up being a way better player than James Wiseman when his career plays out. But I got to go D. All they did was get Chris Paul, lost Dante DiVincenzo, kept about the same roster. They still have nobody 7 feet on this roster. They still don't really have anybody that tall on this roster, and I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, I'm gonna put the Warriors at D, man. They didn't do much this offseason. They really disappointed me. Next, I got the Rockets. You guys already know I'm gonna put the Rockets at A tier. Yes, they spent a lot of money on two guys that aren't worth those contracts, in Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet, but they had a very good draft as well. They're looking to be a playoff team this year. They did, I think, all the right moves. They had to spend that money, and they decided that those were the guys they were going to spend it on. They saw the opportunity, they took it. Side Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks is their starting vets on this team now. I like what they did. They got Amon Thompson, Cam Whitmore in the draft. Jalen Green's going to come back and have a great year. I bet Jabari Smith is too. Still got Sengun. Yeah, they had a great free agency, and they had a very good draft, and that's why I got to put them in A tier. They just made a lot of big moves to try to make them a better team. Next, we got the Los Angeles Clippers. And the Clippers, they didn't really do much. They lost Eric Gordon. They still got basically the same roster. I think they really just lost Eric Gordon. They brought Russell Westbrook back. They were close to getting Harden, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Harden apparently is staying in Philly now because the Sixers don't want to trade him anymore. They ended trade talks. So I don't know where to put the Clippers. I'm between C and D here. The Clippers really didn't do much. And at least the Warriors made a big move and got Chris Paul, a solid move. I'm going to put the Clippers in D's here, man. I mean, it all comes down to health for this team, but it's not like they could have done anything possibly, I think, in free agency or offseason to manage this team even more, because really when they're healthy, they have everything they need. They have the depth, they have the star players, they have what they need. They don't really need to go out and get much. They just need to stay healthy. That's all they need. But they brought back Russ, so, I mean, they didn't do much, though. Next, we got the Lakers. You guys already know I'm going to put the Lakers in 8 here, man. Come on. They got Gabe Vincent. They brought back Rui Hachimura on a contract. They brought back Austin Reeves. They brought back D'Lo. They just brought back this roster that after the trade deadline made them competitive and had them get a record above 500. I mean, after the trade deadline, they managed to revive the Lakers from a 13 seed all the way to a 7 seed within a limited amount of games with all these new guys and D'Lo and Malik Beasley and just all the assets they acquired. And yeah, they lost Malik Beasley, but they brought back the main guys that actually contributed to this team. Brought in some really fun players. Gabe Vincent, I like him. Jackson Hayes is going to be interesting. They brought in what's his name as well, Cam Reddish as well. I like what they did. The Lakers, they're still contenders, and they made the right moves to keep this deep team. Next, we got the Memphis Grizzlies, and they had an interesting offseason. Yes, they lost Tyus Jones. Yeah, they They got what's his name now? They got Marcus Smart instead of Tyus Jones, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, you got two defensive player of the years playing next to each other. Marcus Smart is a very good player, but so was Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones held it down when Ja Morant was out a lot of games, and we're going to see this year if Marcus Smart can do the same at the beginning of the season when Ja's out. So it's going to be interesting for sure. I think in terms of what they did this offseason, I don't think they needed to do anything crazy, and that's how I'm going to put them at C tier. I'm comparing and I'm grading off of what did you need and did you address what you needed. I don't think the Grizzlies needed much. They have the talent on this team. They got Bane, they got Triple J, they have Ja Morant, they have their big man Steven Adams. They have solid depth on this team. Marcus Smart was really the only big move, and that's the only move I think they needed to make. You can even make an argument they didn't even need to make that move. They could have just kept Tyus Jones and ran it back, but I'm gonna give them C. I mean, they didn't need to address much, and they really have what they need. Next, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves. And for them, it just feels like they just need a bit more of offensive creation. I mean, Anthony Edwards is pretty much the solo offensive force at times on this team. I'm not going to leave Cat out. Cat is the secondary offensive guy on this team. He is the second option. But they didn't really do much. They lost Taurean Prince. I know that was like the only major thing. They brought back Nickeil Alexander-Walker, brought back Naz Reid. And for those reasons, because they brought back those two solid role players that were actually pretty important to their team, I'm going to give them a C. Yes, Naz Reid is the third center now they basically have on contract besides Cat and Rudy Gobert. But Naz Reid is very good. He is a very solid backup big and has the potential to be a starter. Can obviously shoot the three. Is pretty versatile. Can score for himself. So he's a very interesting player. And I like how they brought him back. Brought back Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a very good shooter. Spark off the bench. So I like what they did. They didn't do anything crazy, but then again, I don't think we've seen the full ceiling of this team when they're healthy, and hopefully we'll see it this season because Cat did miss a lot of games last year. Next, we got the Pelicans. And the Pelicans, I don't think they did much this offseason besides draft Jordan Hawkins. That was about the most major move they did. I mean, I don't think this team needs much, to be honest. They have CJ Zion and Ingram. Those guys are the head of the snake pretty much, and that's a playoff team. I mean, I think they just need to stay healthy. They're very similar to the Clippers, where I don't think they really needed to do much. And they just really need health. As long as if Zion can stay healthy, I think this team's at the top of the West. And that's why I'm just going to simply put them in either C, B. I mean, I'm between C or B. I think I'm going to put them in C. They didn't really need anything crazy. I mean, yes, they are like the Clippers in the sense where they need a season full of health to really just accomplish things. But the difference between them and the Clippers is that the Clippers could have done some move a little bit, I think, to keep them somewhat afloat, helping the regular season success, but they didn't really do much. They're kind of just running it back, and that's the reason why I'm kind of, on the Clippers. They just haven't had much decent success, and I don't know. They don't have any much issues to address. They have what they need. I might move the Clippers up to C later in this video. I don't. Now that I think about it, the Clippers didn't really need to do much. They really just need to stay healthy. Next, we got the OKC Thunder. And for the Thunder, I think they really just used their draft. They didn't really bring anybody in. But then again, they have all the young pieces on this team to become a playoff team. And for that reason, I'm going to also put them in C tier. They didn't really need to do much at all. And, I'm not going to, discredit you for not doing much because you have what you need already and you're looking to see what you can do with all these young pieces you've already acquired from drafts. But I'm not going to either, give you the benefit of you did a little bit, so I'm going to put you higher up. Like, you didn't need it, so you should go higher up. But C is for teams that either really just didn't had a very average offseason or just didn't need to address much. And that's why I might move the Clippers up later. But I got the Thunder at C. Next, we have the Phoenix Suns. And for them, you guys already know. You guys probably maybe assumed how I feel about this. I got the Phoenix Suns at A tier. A lot of people thought that the Suns wouldn't be able to really do much in the offseason or free agency period because they had already spent their money on their big three or big four, 3.5, whatever you want to call it, of the Andre Ayton, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. And they lost Chris Paul, but Bradley Beal at this point in his career is an upgrade over Chris Paul. So let's be honest where it is. But yeah, they have a lot of money spent on those four guys, and a lot of people thought, because of new CBA rules and things that make it harder for you to build teams around guys with huge contracts, it would be very hard for them to gain any depth and acquire depth in the free agency and offseason period. But they proved this wrong. They went out and got a bunch of defensive wings, mostly wings, guys that are plug-in players, guys that are very good role players. I'll give you examples. They went out, I believe, and got Yuta Wannabe Yuta Watanabe. They got Bobo. They got I believe they got Katie Bates Diop, I believe, as well. They got a lot of guys that are pretty solid defensively. They have the depth they need, and because they managed to acquire so many guys, I mean, we all saw the notifications at some point of the Suns constantly acquiring a bunch of role players with Woj and Shams putting those out. The Suns just, I think, outperformed their expectations for what they can get in free agency, and they basically stacked out their bench with a bunch of solid role players. So I'm going to give them A. Next, we got the Portland Trail Blazers, and this is my team, so I'm going to be a little bit biased towards it, but at the same time, I'm going to be honest. Scoot Henderson is the biggest benefit of this offseason. That's the best thing we did. Bringing Jeremy Grant on that incredibly overpaid contract was a mistake. I like Jeremy Grant, but he is not worth all that money. And for that reason, I'm gonna put him at C. I think Scoot Henderson saves them in a way. So that's the best thing they did, was bring in and draft Scoot Henderson. Yes, we're gonna lose Dame, but it was gonna happen at some point eventually. I don't think Dame was gonna roll with this youth movement. He said multiple times he doesn't want a youth movement. He wants to contend. And the Blazers decided to go with the youth movement by drafting Scoot. So we are here now. Yeah, besides bringing back Grant and drafting Scoot, they haven't really done much. They brought back Thibault, so I like that too. That's solid, but lands him in C tier. Doesn't really move the needle much for this team. Next, we got the Sacramento Kings. And I'm going to be honest, I think they had one of the most underrated offseasons. I don't think people understand some of the assets that they managed to acquire. They got the EuroLeague MVP from overseas on a very solid contract to come help this team win now. They did lose Rashawn Holmes, but they didn't need him. They already have Sabonis and Alex Len, and that'll do the job for you pretty much. I believe they brought in Chris Duarte. Very solid pickup. I like Chris Duarte a lot. And I think, yeah, they made some very underrated moves this offseason. I like what they did for sure. So I'm going to give the Sacramento Kings a B tier. I think they had one of the most underrated offseasons, bringing in that EuroLeague guy, bringing in Chris Duarte, and just keeping basically most of this roster together. And that's why I like what the Kings did. I don't hear much people talking about the Kings offseason. Next, we got the San Antonio Spurs. And for them, I'm going to go C2. They brought back Trey Jones, I believe, on a contract. And they drafted Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama is the only reason I want to put them at C tier. Besides that, they didn't really do much. But I think they just want to see what this young team can accomplish first before they really get too deep into trying to acquire guys in free agency and bring in stars. But yeah, Victor, it's the best thing they did this offseason is draft him. So I'm putting him at C tier. Next, we got the Utah Jazz. And for them, I think they actually had one of the better off seasons. They drafted Keontae George, drafted Taylor Hendricks, who we haven't seen any of, but my opinion, he meets the eye test from college ball. Awesome 3-and-D wing. We saw Keontae George ball out in the summer league. They also got John Collins now to start. I believe he'll be starting. I don't know how it's going to work between him and Lauri Markkanen at that power forward spot, but I'm assuming John Collins is going to start because he's on that massive contract. I don't think you're going to pay a guy that much to come off the bench. And they just have a very solid team. Besides that, I think they had one of the most underrated off seasons. They drafted very well, and they got John Collins as an underrated piece, who I think will have a bounce back season. So those are all my West teams, guys. Let me know what you guys think of these gradings of all these West teams. Let me know in the comments for sure. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe to stay on the radar for all things basketball.